Hello, everyone. Welcome to Do Ghosts Be Real, episode number 3. We've got a great show for you today. It's about the Lizzie Borden house. You may have heard about this. A number of brutal murders occurred in this house. We're going to talk about whether it's haunted or not. But first off, we have some big news this week. We actually are finally on a number of podcast services. We're still not on Apple because we're haunted by the ghost of Steve Jobs. He will not let us upload to Apple, but we're working on it. But for the moment, we're on YouTube, obviously. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on Google Podcasts. So, tell your friends.
Yeah,
that's
tell
all.
them about
That's
it.
all I gotta say.
Yeah, that's all we got to really say as far
Yeah.
as big news.
Yeah.
We've again appreciated the love and support that we've gotten for
Yeah, seriously, guys. Like,
our third
thank you.
episode in, and we're already, we're having a great time. We're doing this for you guys, honestly.
We
And
thought-
keep
we
it
love it.
coming.
Yeah.
Honestly.
You haven't done enough. No, but seriously, like, we expected this to sit there and have nobody listening to it, and we have got some great feedback.
Yeah.
So seriously, thank you, because we're doing this for you guys. So thank you.
And for us also.
I mean,
We're
yeah,
trying to
I
do
mean,
this.
we're three idiots talking about ghosts. What's
Yeah,
more fun than that?
Exactly.
Like, let's be honest.
Exactly. So, on to our show. So this week we're talking about the Lizzie Borden house, which, so Lizzie Borden was a woman who supposedly, maybe, murdered some people in her family home, and I believe it was 1892.
And the funny thing is the reason why everyone was convinced in the media why she had done it is there was actually a fun jump rope sort of
Yeah.
rhyme made up
There
for
was-
it.
See, now this guy's
Oh, I
alluding
love it.
immediately to the
I love
fact
it.
that maybe she didn't do it.
Who's
Now, how do
to
we
say?
know that anyway?
We don't know.
We don't
But
know.
yeah, let's do the
So-
jump rope rhyme.
Yeah.
So Lizzie Borden grabbed an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When her father saw what she done, she gave him 41. If
Yeah.
that doesn't scream
I think
that
it was
bitch is
when
crazy.
she saw what she had done, she
Yeah.
gave her father 41. But
Close enough.
you know what?
You know what?
Pull out.
My man was napping. He was
Yeah.
napping before he got his head turned to
Well-
strawberry jam.
Well, and the
Yeah.
thing is like
Did you see the pictures of that?
They're brutal.
That's brutal.
The thing
that
is,
that was a
though,
crime of passion. Let's
like,
just say that.
it definitely wasn't 40 whacks because
No,
there would be
no.
But it
nothing
was
left.
literally 20.
Yeah.
Like, 20 is a lot. You gotta hate someone
that
to hit them with
point-
a hatchet 20 fucking times.
At that point, it escalated rather quickly.
That's just overkill.
Yeah, what did they say? I think they said that Abby Borden got hit like 18 to 19 times, and Andrew got hit.
I
like
think it was
10 to
11.
or something.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
11. But she got hit like
She
hit
got
like
she
20
got turned
times.
to goo. They really blasted.
Did
these
you the
people.
pictures
Whoever
of
did it?
Yeah, the
Oh.
pictures of her skull, man. The whole top.
It's
was
just
like there was nothing left.
non-existent.
There was
Yeah,
nothing
it's
left.
bonkers.
Yeah.
The thing I always think of, especially with murders, why do you got to do overkill like that, man?
Well, because
like
you
just once.
'Cause you're
and
ticked off.
Yeah, because for 20 years, maybe not, it wasn't that long, but like for a long time, this guy was like, or this woman and her father, like she lived with them, and she wouldn't let them okay, so this household, they were worth, for those who don't know, they were wealthy. They bought a whole city block, or roughly so. They had a number of properties in the area, and they were worth today between $8 to $10 million, which is
Yeah.
A
not an
decent chunk of
insignificant
change,
amount of money.
especially back then.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
At the time of Andrew Borden's
So-
death, he was worth $300K in 1892.
Exactly.
which is
So
nuts.
that's pretty ballin',
That's
right?
that's a lot of guap.
Despite that, he was not well liked, and he was frugal to the point that it may have been like a mental illness.
Oh,
So-
for sure. Like, at the time there was running water.
Yeah,
But they had
didn't have it.
heat
Yeah.
up pots.
Yeah, they
to
didn't have
throw-
electricity.
to shower.
Could you
And it's
imagine?
like-
That's like having every other house in the block having Wi-Fi, and you're like, I think we're gonna go to McDonald's for Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Despite the fact
gonna
that you have
steal
a
our Wi-Fi
Yeah,
because
despite the
I
fact
don't
that you
wanna pay.
own a bank.
And
The dude owned a bank, and he's like, no running water for us, please. Mm-mm.
The crazy thing about it too is that they didn't live in a particular, like, as far as neighborhoods going, because we were in, what is it, Fall River, Mass?
Yeah, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fall River,
Massachusetts.
Mass.
Yeah.
And the neighborhood that they lived in apparently was a neighborhood that, like, immigrants and people
Yeah.
who were not necessarily as well-to-do, and,
Yeah.
and many immigrants and people who weren't as well-to-do in that neighborhood did, in fact, have, like, electric lighting, and possibly some of them may have had indoor
And-
plumbing, but the nice neighborhood was called The Hill.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah, it was called the Hill, and that really pissed Lizzie off that they lived
Oh,
like
for
that
sure.
because she wanted the finer things in life. She was a patron of the arts, but her dad wouldn't let them have any art in the house. He viewed it as frivolous,
I get it.
and I get it.
My serial killer walls, I get it. There is nothing
my-
on my walls. I don't believe
Hey
in
man,
art.
art's expensive. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm
Yeah.
a broke bitch. Art's expensive.
Yeah, it
Brett's
is.
room looks like a red room on the internet. There's like
Oh,
LED
God.
strips all around, all along
Oh,
the edges.
God.
It's rough.
It's very frightening. He's just
Oh,
missing all
God.
the cameras on the side.
Oh, we're getting there, buddy. We're getting there.
Oh,
Let's
boy.
not. Let's not.
So, you know,
Oh boy.
and
So
with the Borden family, they were a well-known family.
They were.
and also a very disliked.
yeah, maybe not for
family.
the right reasons.
No, they were
though.
not liked at
No.
all. I mean,
Well, I don't think that's actually entirely true. I think that, from what I understand, both Lizzie and her sister. What was her sister's name? Was
Oh, it
man,
was.
let's get
grab
something.
the
okay.
notes. Grab the notes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know what I've
What
got it.
was her-
Emma.
Emma,
Her
that's
sister's
it.
name was Emma. So
We're real
Lizzie
prepared
and
for this
Emma
one, folks.
both were like they were like facets of the church. They were very
Yeah.
involved in that.
I know, like Lizzie had a good reputation amongst
Yeah.
the
I
community.
guess, yeah, I should change my tune. I should say Andrew
Andrew.
was very much disliked.
Andrew was
by
the one who was
everybody.
disliked.
I think he had I don't even know if he was heavily disliked or if he had a lot of different he had rivals because he was
He
in
did.
he was in a lot of business. He had
Yes.
his hand in a lot of different industries because he
Well-
owned textile mills.
Yeah.
He also at some point whether it was at the time he died or not, I'm not sure, but I know that at one point he was selling furniture and he owned a company that sold furniture and caskets, and he also was the president of this big bank, and he also owned, as we'd stated before, a ton of property, and a lot of that property was actually rented out by the people who worked at the textile mill. And one of the things that I'd heard about him that actually, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too
Go for
too
it.
big in my britches
Just
here.
go for it, man.
That's not a statement. Too big in your britches. Too big for your britches. I don't know.
That's
the
it.
one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Anyway, I think maybe you guys are actually right about him being disliked because I'd heard that the people who worked in the textile mills often worked for him, and because he was the guy who was in charge of those mills, whenever they would get a raise, he would raise their rent.
Oh.
So-
Doesn't that stink? Just
What a
keeping people
dick.
down.
Well,
Oh
and
my God.
He had, like you said, a lot of rivals.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that these murders were his rivals or a business deal gone bad
Yeah,
or
it was
something
it
along
was
those
a
lines.
hit or something.
It was a
Someone
different
hated him.
time for
Yeah.
sure.
I just
But-
want to interject here.
Yes.
I had a random thought. What if he was buried in one of the caskets that he made?
That's wild.
It's
Whoa.
entirely
very
possible.
possible.
It's entirely
How
possible.
big was Fall River at that time? I
Not,
don't know.
Not big. I doubt there's tons of casket
Yeah,
makers.
it wasn't huge. I think at the time it was the 10th biggest city in Massachusetts. I
Yeah,
think
there
they
are
said
a
it was
lot
like
of spots in
80 to
Massachusetts.
90,000 or
I
something.
think the crazy part, because this whole thing happened, right? And it wasn't till a year later that they had the actual trial for Lizzie Borden.
Yeah, she was in jail for a whole year.
And the fucking prosecution busts out the heads of both the parents
Oh,
in
yeah.
the courtroom.
Yeah,
I-
and
like-
she fainted.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
telling anybody.
Yeah.
Now, did she faint because we should, before we get too far ahead, we should really set the scene and go back to actually what happened
Yes.
on that
We
day.
probably should.
But anyway, because we're already on the
We gotta
heads,
talk
the
about it.
decapitated
Yeah.
heads.
It's
I
wild.
heard some varying accounts on this, and of course, while we're researching this, whatever we're going to be looking at, just like this podcast, please don't source us.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
absolutely not.
Take it with a grain of salt.
This is a ghost podcast rather
Yeah.
than a history podcast.
we
but
are
we get into a
three
lot of
idiots
history.
with microphones. Do not listen to us.
I mean, listen to
We
us,
are
but don't
cr-
necessarily
okay.
believe us.
We really
Okay.
want you to listen to us, but please don't
These
take it with a grain of salt.
These two are normies. I'm a crazy person. Do not listen to me.
Man, look
it's
at
a
how
bad
few
idea.
sleeves this guy has
yeah.
Who needs
for
sleeves?
the video audience.
The crazier
anyway.
he gets, the less
The
sleeve he
less
has.
clothing I will wear.
One day, Brett's just gonna be naked on the show.
I'm just
For
gonna
the
be-
audio audience, Brett is naked on the show. Imagine him however you
say?
like.
Who's to say? I'm not a doctor. I couldn't tell you.
I'm
these
not
things.
complaining.
Anyway, though, the damn heads. So I'd heard some conflicting information based on what I read and what I listened to. I'd heard in one source that they had exhumed the bodies, decapitated
Yes.
them, boiled off all the flesh, and then brought them into the courtroom as like a shock thing and to try to like match the hatchet up to the wounds, and
Oh
that's
my
how they
God.
determined how many hits they had.
That's
And then another
wild.
one I heard was that they had brought both Abby and Andrew's bodies into the dining room of that house where they had done the autopsies on them, decapitated them, buried their bodies, sent the heads off to Harvard, where they boiled off the flesh and checked all that
I-
stuff, and then brought them back, and then they buried the heads at the foot of their graves in a separate box afterwards. So they
God.
buried headless corpses.
So if you were,
Either way, horrifying.
yeah,
what?
if you
Here's
were a
the
ghost,
good
you'd
news.
be pissed.
Oh, I would. Well, maybe there's a reason why I'm going like, guys, this place for sure is haunted because there is some spooky shit that takes place here.
Whether it's haunted or not, just the absolute burden of horrific crimes that
Yeah.
have gone on in this place, no matter
Yeah.
what. It's what, like, we really should set the scene before we
Yes.
go much
Yes.
deeper. But this spot is a bed and breakfast now, and you
Yeah.
can stay there. Now, whether you believe in all the paranormal goo-ga that's going on in there, whether it is or is not happening, we'll get into what we think about that. The place is spooky.
Oh,
It
God,
is.
yeah. Well, and from outside, like
It just looks like a normal house.
it looks like a normal.
It's like a normal. It's a small.
dated house.
Yeah, it's a small Victorian home
Yes.
built in like the
But-
or mid early 1800s.
like we
it's,
talked about in the Winchester episode. Anything Victorian is creepy looking.
Yeah.
It's creepy as fuck.
I wonder why. Like, I agree with you. I
Like,
agree, but I wonder
don't
why.
Understand.
Like,
When
is that just because there's so many horror movies set in like the
I
early
would say,
1800s kind of thing?
Like,
Like,
all the ghosts are from that time in these
Yeah.
horror movies, and
we just
they
associate this with creepy
Yes.
shit.
Is it just because enough time has passed in those homes for all kinds of nonsense
Yeah.
to allegedly
Maybe
affix
maybe it's
themselves
because
to it?
every single one of those houses was built with the world's creakiest floors, and that
Oh
in
my
itself
God,
is just
yeah.
inherently creepy.
That and like just like construction standards
Yeah.
back then. I think we talked about that
Yeah.
on a previous
Oh, yeah.
episode about like
Yeah.
just like how normal it was for people to be just like
To die.
bonking
yeah.
out,
It seems
punching their
fine.
Yeah.
ticket
Yeah.
on the construction site.
Okay, so I guess we should, like you said, go back and
Yeah,
set
we
the
really
scene a
need
little
to.
bit.
Yeah, we really need to.
Yeah,
set
we're
the
going
scene.
wild.
So
Yeah, we're wild out on
was-
this one, boys.
it was August 4th, 1892.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
that the
was.
murder took-
Now look at this guy. No
Yeah.
notes or anything.
That's right.
I've got my phone out. Simon's got his big old dossier on the table.
Oh,
and
it-
Brett's
it-
got
dude,
nothing.
Dude, it's only because I did my notes for like 3 hours.
There you go.
Fantastic.
That's the only thing. The only reason.
He's off book in theater terms.
So in any case, this happened at that date. So Lizzie came downstairs and saw that her father was laying on the couch with ungodly amount of axe wounds to the dome, or sorry, sharp
sh-
implement
we-
wounds to. We aren't sure because
We don't know where she came from.
I thought
either.
she
We
was in
don't
the
know that-
backyard.
We don't know.
No,
like,
she came from
allegedly-
upstairs.
I,
Allegedly.
Okay.
I think it was that because she claimed that she was in the barn.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's
she's
Because if
entirely
she'd
claimed
been
she was in the
possible.
barn.
too.
upstairs, then she would have run across her mom's
She-
corpse.
the what I
Or not her
heard-
mom's, her
Oh
stepmom's
yes,
corpse.
sorry, I am mistaken,
yeah,
guys.
she
It
couldn't
was
give
the
a pro-
maid.
Yes,
it was the maid who
the
was
maid.
upstairs. Yeah.
So, they find the body,
Yeah.
and then they go upstairs to because they still think a murderer's in the house.
Yeah.
They go upstairs and find her stepmother, Abby, with
Just brutally
So-
murdered. Yeah.
essentially, when I'm saying it looks like raspberry jelly is just everywhere, it looks like raspberry jelly.
It's like
These
when you
people
get-
got turned to goo.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like when you get hit in Call of Duty and the entire screen is
Yes,
just red
it's
jelly.
just
Except that
beautiful
was her
raspberry
face.
jelly.
Yes,
That's
except-
exactly what it was.
Exactly.
And it's actually okay. I'm told myself I wasn't gonna say this. This is the fun thing because I'm gonna actually do it.
Oh god.
This was the first recorded autopsy photos in America. At
Really?
the time, yeah, they were the
Wow.
very first ones.
Wow.
That's
So
interesting.
it's very very cool.
Yeah.
That is a cool fact
But
actually. That is
it's
pretty cool.
also
It's
like
a bit morbid, but it's,
it's
cool.
such a horrific thing
Yeah.
that even back then everyone was in shock.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in no shortage of horrific acts this
No.
episode.
You're gonna find a lot of the hauntings and weird things that we talk about are usually connected to horrific
Just some
acts.
horrific
It's
shit,
usually
yeah.
pretty heavy. It's usually
Yeah.
not the best. There's a lot of controversy though surrounding what happened with the discovery of the bodies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because before they found Abby, the stepmother's body, upstairs, so Lizzie comes in. She calls the maid.
Mm-hmm.
Calls like, Maggie, come downstairs. And it's worth noting, I put in my notes that these were shitty rich people because the maid's name was actually Bridget, but both Emma and Lizzie called her Maggie because they'd had a previous maid that was named Maggie. So they're
Man.
just like, nope, maids are just Maggie.
That is
now.
a power move right there.
Wow.
It's so funny. No electricity, still had a maid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you can't do your own cleaning.
How
Come on.
dare you?
That's for
Yeah.
common folks.
But
But anyway, so calls her down. This guy is just bashed all the crap.
Yeah, on the couch, by the way. Yeah, he was having a
Yeah.
nap.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And so she immediately goes like, "Oh, go get a doctor." Which, like, at this point, this guy is like, there's nothing
no
left
way.
of him. Like,
Yeah.
you're picking up
Yeah.
bits of him and it's falling
from
through your hands.
from
it's no
the
good.
accounts of what had happened, the guy, the first hit was across his eye,
Oof.
so his eyeball was like hanging.
Yeah,
half
and it
out
was
of his
cut in
head.
half. His
Yes.
eyeball was cut in half.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that, like, because we've already talked a little bit about the brutal crime scene photos. Looking at these photos, because you can find them very easily on
Yes.
the internet. They're not in it, like, they're the first thing that you'll
Yeah.
find when you look up this case.
Yeah.
They are, despite the fact that they're not in color, they're grisly enough that you
are.
really would, like, you can
You
imagine
can set
what they
the
look
scene.
like.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
very
Yeah,
clear
it's-
photos.
Yeah.
It's genuinely upsetting
Yeah.
that a human could do that to another human.
It is. Yeah.
It really is.
But that's what suggests. That's why this is so interesting, is because it suggests a crime of passion.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you know, like we were talking about, they find Andrew's body first,
Yep.
Right.
And
then they go upstairs.
No, they don't go upstairs
No?
yet, because this is one of the theories about it. Because, like, if you're like, there's some conflicting stuff about what happened with Lizzie, because, like, of course, the theory of the time, with her being the person who was put on trial for it, which we're jumping ahead to get to, a lot of times people kind of hypothesize that when somebody murders someone else, it's better when somebody else discovers them, rather than the murderer walking in and going, "Oh no,
Look what-
somebody's been killed."
Look what happened by accident.
but-
The theory is that they sent for the doctor. She sent Maggie, aka Bridget, aka Maggie, across the street to get the doctor, and then I believe it was Maggie and the doctor who went
Yeah.
upstairs,
Okay.
and they found Abby's body. And the thing about Abby's body is that, like, we found Andrew's bodies first. He was still dripping blood.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
the blood was fresh. Now,
It was super fresh. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
blood on Abby was, like, already starting to. It was, like,
It was
all over
congealed.
the carpet, and it was congealing.
Yeah.
And it was like
it was a
had-
few hours old,
So
probably.
what that leads me to believe is, like, okay, so obviously whomever killed her, because you know this is such a grisly thing that we're talking about, she still got off. She was
did.
still acquitted
For many
Right.
reasons. We can talk about that
for
later.
many reasons. But you know, whomever it was, and the reason I'm leaning towards her doing it, there's so many conflicting things, right?
Mhm.
Like just the angle in which, because she was about the same height as the stepmother.
Yep.
Just the angle doesn't make sense.
Why is that? What's
Yeah,
that about?
tell us why. I didn't get that deep into
That's
it.
not one that I'm getting, because, like, I watched the Smithsonian did. They have
Okay.
some sort of TV show, and they did
And I could be mistaken.
they
I
did like a
honestly could.
ballistics gel recreation of the bodies, and they were, like, trying to determine whether, because, like, Lizzie Borden was in her 30s. She was a, like, not a super tall woman in her 30s. They were trying to determine whether somebody of her build and just her weight, because I think she was like, I may be way off on this. I'm pulling this one out of my arse, but I think she was like 130 pounds or something.
I don't know her
She
exact
was
weight.
not very
Because
big.
her stepmother
She
was
was a
like
she was a big lady.
she was a thick
She
girl.
was a big gal.
She
Anyway,
was she was over
she was
200.
Like, she was like
Wow.
240 or something.
which back in that time is nuts.
That's
very
rare.
surprising.
Yeah.
That's a very opulent lifestyle
Yes.
if you're weighing that much.
Yeah,
Let's be honest.
yeah.
But they did determine in their ballistics gel recreation that she absolutely very easily, especially if, like, clouded by the rage, could have turned these
Oh,
people
for
to
sure.
jam.
Oh yeah.
And
I should stop. Really, I'm really trivializing by saying turning these people to jam.
these mushy boys.
Oh god.
boy.
So, but that also being said, she got Maggie to burn one of her dresses because she claimed
that's
that there
why-
was paint on it.
Well, I don't know.
So you burn a dress the same day that murders happen
Before the
to
police got
happen?
there.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like,
And that's what apparently was what put her in. That's basically what made the police
Yeah.
think that she
yeah.
was. Because from what I understand, initially she wasn't on the radar. She was the only person who was home. Well, Bridget Maggie was home as well. But apparently, like, they said that she was kind of out and about. She was upstairs possibly for some of it, but also she was out and about. Whereas Lizzie was just around, and
Yeah.
her alibi didn't make any sense.
And
Now,
it kept-
there's some reasons for that.
It kept changing too.
she could not keep a story straight.
Yeah, she couldn't keep
in
the
the
story
courtrroom.
straight.
Now-
And- go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, do you know why they hypothesized she couldn't keep it straight?
Not off the top of my head, but I mean,
'Cause
I know
she's
that
the
she.
dame. No, I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I'm sure.
Oh boy.
I'm sure that had something to do with it.
She anyway though, what had happened is and one of the parts of her defense, and why they actually, I think they said that her initial testimony was inadmissible was because, and one of the reasons she got off, despite the fact that, like, because when they were asking her questions about where she was, she'd initially said she was out in the barn looking for some lead to make fishing sinkers or something like that. I don't know about fishing, so I don't know what that's about.
That's such a wild
but she was
excuse.
out there eating pears, with lead all over her hands, causing all kinds of issues there. But apparently the doctor had given her some morphine
Oh, really?
to kind of calm her down.
Yikes.
They say that she was very calm. Now, was this because she was actually doped up on morphine at the
Again,
time that the police
what
had
is-
arrived?
We keep coming back to this. They
Victoria-
just love giving people drugs.
Victorian
no
folk
kidding,
are
hey.
dopers.
Yeah,
they're
they just-
all messed up.
They're
on
just
a
love
lot
their
of
goddamn
drugs.
hippies.
You know, one thing I did read though was that one of the reasons why they did take her in is because her story kept changing.
Yeah.
She burned her dress, and who burns a dress just because it has paint on it? You throw it out. You don't fucking burn it.
Yeah, and
And
that
then
was a family
that's-
friend
yeah.
who apparently saw her burning the dress.
And then
or
when
saw was it
So it was
Maggie burning
Maggie.
the
She
dress?
yeah,
was
it was
burning
it
the
was
dress.
Maggie.
Right.
Yeah, but then
And now we're
also
calling her Maggie too.
we are
She doesn't
dicks.
deserve a name.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Don't
She is
ever
a
be
maid.
Brett's maid. If you get a job
No.
offer from Brett, don't do it.
I am in
Um,
no position to employ anybody.
Maybe someday.
yeah, maybe someday. So, one of the reasons why they took her in is because the police said that she showed no emotion. When they asked her about her mother, they were like, "Oh, she's not my mother.
You know,
Like, she's my stepmother."
and
And she wasn't worked up about this. She wasn't acting like two people just got murdered in her
But,
house, one of which was her father.
The problem is though with humans is when you go through a traumatic experience like that, she was probably in shock.
She was completely in shock.
Yeah, but
So-
unless she was in
unless
shock
she actually
because she just
murdered.
bashed two people's
Yeah,
skulls in.
that could be
Now,
entirely
like,
possible.
it's worth noting that at this point too, like, our understanding of trauma and all that sort of stuff wasn't that sophisticated. Like, I don't know,
come a
we're
long
not
way.
that far removed from Duncan witches at this point. I think that
Yeah.
was the 1600s. This is, I mean, to be fair, I guess about 200 years later.
almost
But
three,
in any case, all right,
almost 300.
all right.
I don't know
Yeah,
math,
you're right
but
about
I
that.
know
You know what?
numbers.
To be
I know the date that it
to
happened.
be fair, we may be very far away from dunking witches, but in any case, like, our understanding of, like, just the way that people's emotions work and stuff like that, and, like, just anything surrounding the mind has gotten so much more sophisticated.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for
and
sure.
like not just that, but the way that the police handle crime scenes has become so much more sophisticated. At the time, they didn't close crime scenes, so when they called the
just walking
police,
through.
people could just walk through. This wasn't locked down.
my
It
God.
wasn't closed.
Which is nuts. And it was also considered one of the reasons why, because apparently their initial suspect, they just grabbed a dude who had recently, an immigrant fellow who'd come to town. They picked
that
him up
makes sense.
for a very short period of time, mostly, and, like, the theory is because, like, of course, like, well, nothing can happen in our quaint little spot.
Right.
It wouldn't have been any of these people. It's this guy who has an accent and we're not used to.
Yeah,
They cut him loose pretty quickly.
my guess too is they grabbed them because at the time there was lots of racism towards Irish immigrants.
I don't know that he was Irish. I have no idea what he
But
was.
they did live
They
in an
didn't
area
like
with
anybody.
a lot of immigrants, and at that
Right.
time the Irish were the ones being prosecuted in America. That was a
I
thing.
think Irish, Italian. I
Yes,
think,
pretty
you know what,
much
I think
anyone who
pretty
wasn't
much-
white.
anyone that wasn't
Yeah.
French,
Wow. Any-
anyone that wasn't
we should
French
be careful
or
with our
English.
definitions. Yeah, anybody
Yeah.
who wasn't
As-
French or English.
You know, as far as that goes, that's the best way we can
Yeah.
Right.
describe it. So, yeah, it would be a perfect scapegoat. Guy just comes over here. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows his family. Like, his
yeah.
family doesn't even know if he made it here.
Who knows? Maybe he
You
was
know?
somebody who worked at one of Andrew's mills or
And that's
something like that
entirely
as
possible
well.
too.
But
Well, judging how he raised the rent after giving them
Yeah,
raises,
that's
it
no
wouldn't
good.
surprise
I would
me
not-
if
maybe he
you.
deserved a few whacks.
Maybe he
mean,
did.
But one other thing about the crime scene before we get too far away
Yeah.
from it, you were absolutely right about them not closing it and all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. Another thing that's wild about it is the fact that it was considered disrespectful to go through a lady's things. So they
Yeah.
at no point checked anything
Yeah.
that Lizzie had. Like,
Oh
now
Or-
let's
or the maids.
Right.
They didn't barely even question the maid. And then when they were questioning Lizzie, they were like, "Oh, well, a woman couldn't have done this."
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. At the time, that was the ethos at the time, right?
Exactly. Let's be
Because
clear about that.
No such atrocity had been committed by a woman yet in America. I'd imagine. I don't know.
or at least
Yeah.
it wasn't common. From what
Yeah,
I
it
understand,
certainly
they didn't
wasn't
have-
very
Yeah,
common.
it certainly
no.
wasn't common.
They didn't have
Yeah.
like prison facilities really
No.
to hold
No.
women
No.
anyway.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
But the murder weapon that we allege, and we don't even
Yeah.
we can't really confirm
They,
that it's
no,
the
we
murder
we
weapon.
actually can. They
Can
they,
we?
they
Oh, really?
confirmed that this was actually the murder weapon. They went back
Oh,
Really?
shit.
years and years later, and they did some analysis of this, and they
Oh,
found
wow.
that hatchet.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, they were Lizzie supposedly murdered her father and stepmother with a hatchet, and the only reason she stopped hitting her father, they think, is because, and the reason why she only hit him like 10 or 11 times is because the handle broke off.
Right.
Oh,
And they
'cause
found-
they did have the handle.
They
where
had,
it was
yeah, and
sheared
they
off.
found the handle, and it
Did
was
they?
kept. Yeah, they found the handle, and it was kept, and they found the hatchet. Like the police initially found the hatchet in the basement.
Yeah.
And then years later, you said when they were like doing testing on this, they found that these hatchet marks perfectly matched this hatchet that they preserved, and so they're like 90% sure.
And
That it was
that
the
it
murder
was the
weapon.
and you
murder
know
weapon.
what?
Who
At
used
the
it.
time, they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, there was no blood on the hatchet." Well,
Well, apparently that
the
it was
science-
like tossed in ash or
yeah,
something
the
like
science
Yeah.
isn't how it is now,
Yeah.
for sure. So like, yeah, you
And
could
when the police found
get
it,
away with it.
one of the things they said was that it was put in the cellar next to, I think it was 2 or 3 other axes and hatchets, and the other ones had been sitting there for a long time, and they had perfectly evenly coated dust on them. Like
Oh,
it
wow.
looked
Oh,
like
and
they'd
that
been
one
sitting
was
there.
just there.
And this one, they said it was dusty,
Huh.
but it looked like someone had sprinkled the dust on it. It wasn't as
Oh, yeah,
even.
yeah.
Right, and that's what the ash would be about. then.
Yeah.
The ash that was sprinkled on it.
You know,
Yeah.
you know what's wild to me, because you see all the pictures, because they do have pictures of the axe as well. You can look that up online.
And I'm pretty sure
And-
they have the axe sitting in a museum.
The
It's
damn
in,
thing is so rusty. It's like, holy shit, she must have had some fucking firepower to knock someone's head off like that.
Maybe.
Because
I
that thing
mean,
was rusty as all hell.
You know what? You bludgeon anybody with anything in
Yeah.
the
I
back of the
guess
head,
so,
though.
but god
I
damn.
don't think it needs to be sharp.
Yeah.
You can hit anybody with a blunt object.
especially
hard enough. I
blunt.
know from experience.
Blunt. And,
I don't know from experience.
I don't
That's
know
not
if I can
admittance of
podcast
any
with
sort
you
of,
anymore. Jesus.
especially like a heavy metal blunt object.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be sharp. You just have to
It's
swing it
just-
fast enough.
Crazy how much damage one person,
Yeah.
whomever that person may be, is. Now,
So
we
we got
should get into the spooky stuff.
Do we
Yeah.
do we want to get into how she went through the court and she got exonerated?
let's just briefly cover
Yeah,
it,
Okay,
and we'll just
so
say
let's get out of history.
So one of the reasons why she was acquitted is because when they trotted out that evidence in court, she fainted. And the jury had a hard time believing that this like sensible, respectable,
Right.
church-going woman could do such a thing. And so the jury deliberated for a short time, and she was found not guilty.
And she had one hell of a defense team too.
Yeah,
who
she
managed to
did.
get a bunch of things excluded from the
Yeah,
trial.
they
One
chipped
of them-
away at the prosecution the whole time, and by the end of it, there wasn't much left.
One of the things that was actually interesting about this as well is Lizzie, I guess the day prior to this murder, had gone to a hardware store and she'd attempted to buy some poison.
Yes.
And prior to, and like the family
right, I
prior to the
forgot about
murders
this.
Yeah.
was actually very, very ill. Now, whether that was due to eating old mutton or whether it was due to them being poisoned or whatever the heck the deal was.
I was gonna say, they later on when they did
Right.
the testing for the axe, they also found that there was no poison traces in the bodies.
Right.
And one thing that like Andrew, he was so frugal that they weren't allowed to throw away any food, and they also, because they didn't have electricity, they didn't have a refrigerator.
Old crap
So they
from
would,
an icebox.
not even. They left the day before they got sick because they left the mutton on the stove for like 3 days because they wouldn't throw it
God.
away.
Yeah,
Oh
because
my
Abby
God.
Abby went and talked to a doctor about the
Yeah.
fact that she thought her family was being poisoned. Now, her family may have been about to be poisoned.
Maybe.
From what I understand, Lizzie's, I guess, explanation for the poison was that she was going to clean a sealskin coat with it or something like that. It
Yeah.
was some sort of acid.
But it had no, as far as I understand, it had no real cleaning
They
properties.
got, in any case, whatever it was, because it wasn't the day of the murders and because the method of, like, bludgeoning someone to death versus slowly poisoning them,
It's a big
because they were
difference.
so
Oh, yeah.
different. Now, in my brain, I go, oh, like maybe she just got fed up and did the deed.
Right.
If I'm, if I want to believe that she did it. But in any case, because they had determined those two methods of murder were too different, they got that excluded.
Yeah.
So there were just so many reasons why it got
You
thrown
know-
out. She
so
got
many.
exonerated, but as we know, that lovely nursery rhyme that was going around,
Yep.
kind of the
She-
Fall River never really truly
Yeah, no,
believed that
she
didn't
wore
do
a
it.
badge of guilt for the rest of her
Well,
life.
And here's the sad part, because up until this point, we've been kind of painting her as the villain.
But is it the sad part? How do we know that she's not the villain? We
Okay.
don't.
So
Because there's more to it. But I'll
There
let you
is.
go. I'm sorry.
there is. So there was. How do I put this? There was alleged physical and sexual abuse that Andrew was putting the family through.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
I didn't get that part.
So
but
there
Andrew was not a good person.
Right.
Yeah, he was not a great guy.
I think I
So-
did see something.
You know, there's potential for that being a causing and deciding
Right.
factor as well. So at that point, really, was she doing this for monetary gain?
I mean, she
or
was-
did she just snap?
I think it might have been
It could have
both.
been both.
It could have been
a
both.
real
It could have been
because
combination.
she hated Andrew. He was very controlling. She loved the arts. She loved to be social. Andrew did not like the arts. They weren't allowed to have any of that in their house. They were very controlled. They couldn't have people over. They
Right.
were still unmarried in their 30s, which for a woman
Yeah.
at the time was extremely
Considered
rare.
a spinster at that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, she
and,
was.
And with the whole situation is why they ended up hating the stepmother. Is I don't
That
know.
was financial. So what
Yes.
happened? What happened was the stepmother convinced Andrew to buy a house for her children.
Yes.
And for
Meanwhile,
her sister as
and-
well,
and
who
for-
was in
yeah,
dire straits
exactly.
because she was about to get the boot from her landlord.
Yeah.
So
And instead of her getting the boot, Andrew just bought the house from underneath her.
yeah.
So
Meanwhile,
know,
her own his own children are still living at
didn't-
home
yeah,
in this
exactly.
controlling
and Lizzie
atmosphere.
And Emma were obviously mad about it, and
Yeah.
understandably so.
Yeah.
And they thought if Andrew were to kick the bucket, his next in line to actually inherit their whole fortune. And this is another reason why it was a great motive for
Yes.
Lizzie and or Emma to have killed both of them would have been the fact that if Andrew had died and the stepmother was still kicking around, Abby, she would
inherit the
sat
money.
to get
Yeah.
all of that money. And also Lizzie and Emma both wanted to live on the hill.
Yeah, they
And
did.
the thing about it is they did live on the
Oh,
hill.
They
did.
After the
Oh,
murder,
yeah.
They lived out that
Their
life.
new house. I watched a few. Oh my god, that one I sent you guys, After Effects like a motherfucker. But we won't get into that.
Just before we leave this topic,
of
I want to
course.
say one thing: is that in the weeks leading up to the murder, Andrew had redone his will, and nobody knew
Oh, really?
what was in
Okay.
this. And this will was never found.
Oh wow.
It was never fully certified, and it was never found. It was never. I forget what the word is. I forget what the term is.
Notarized?
Yeah, it was
Notarized. That's
never
it. It was never notarized.
So,
But that is a historical fact that it was known to the family and to some
Wow,
close friends
okay.
that he was redoing his will,
yes,
and nobody knows the contents of what the redone will was. But when she was questioned about this, Lizzie said that she knew there was a will, but she didn't know about the redone will. And then I think her sister contradicted that.
Mm,
So
but apparently this uncle, and we haven't talked about the
Yeah, we
uncle.
haven't talked
John
about the uncle
Morris,
yet.
because there was another guy in the house.
yeah,
Yes.
and John Morris was actually the initial suspect, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
One of them. He
He
was one of the
them
initial.
because he had some business dealings with Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, from what we understand,
he was
they may
also
not
a
have been
butcher by
going well.
trade.
He had a
He
yeah.
was a butcher by trade.
So he was hacking
So,
shit apart.
Yeah,
You know,
he had some
that-
experience whacking
you
stuff.
know, but at the same time,
You think he might have done a little bit of a better job?
Yeah,
Maybe
it would have been cleaner for
maybe.
sure.
However, the uncle and Andrew had a livestock business together, and it was failing.
Hmm. So that's also potentially a motive, right?
There,
Yeah.
there are so many. This is like a really twisted web. Regardless of how we look at this, Lizzie doesn't look good. John Morse doesn't look good. Emma doesn't look good, despite the fact that she wasn't there. And Maggie, aka Bridget, aka Maggie, also moved to Canada at one point. Who's to say that all four of these people were not in cahoots?
But you know
Who
what,
knows?
and
Spencer?
committed this crime together.
Here's the most
no,
important
but we're never
part.
gonna know.
I look good.
You really do.
Old sleeveless
Yeah.
mediocre. give the camera a gun.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Come on, baby.
Do
That's
it.
not
That's what
happening.
the
Do
people
it.
want.
Flex.
So
He's just pretending he didn't wear this shirt on purpose.
I totally didn't. It's like right now 24 degrees Celsius outside. I am a warm boy, so I decided to look nice today. Okay, guys?
He
I
decided
can't
to be,
look nice anymore to record a podcast.
He decided to be nice and cool today.
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Mr. Cool.
Anyway.
Anyways, this is a ghost podcast and not a fashion podcast.
Yeah,
It can be
not a
both.
fashion podcast and not us arguing about the piddly details about historical stuff. Except
Yeah.
actually, it is that type of podcast, but we should get into some spooky
Yeah, we
shit.
should.
I would prefer to get into some
Let's
spooky.
get into
it,
That's
baby.
my wheelhouse.
And
We
who
should.
better to get into the spooky nonsense and Guga than
We're gonna-
Birdicus over here?
Yeah.
We're gonna hand it to our boy Brett.
So So this house in general, like this area has had some wild history.
Yeah, Brett was telling me about this before the show, and I actually didn't know this. So this is going to be new for me too. So tell us, Brett, what happened?
So apparently, like the Bordens owned this patch of land, like this block or whatever,
Because they were rich as fuck.
and one of the Bordens' offshoot family lived in this area. It wasn't the same house that Lizzie and her family lived in. They weren't even moved into that area.
But it was nearby, right?
It was nearby. It was like, across the street almost distance. And so this family member had 3 daughters. And she took 3 daughters out back to the well and drowned all 3 of them in the well.
Oh my god.
And then went into the basement and killed herself. Like slit her
Holy
own
crap.
throat.
That is disturbing.
Yeah, see, now I didn't know that part.
Yes.
Those are some fun new details.
Yeah.
So that's why the Lizzie Borden house is supposedly haunted by the ghost of 3 little girls.
What did they just did they cross the damn street and go
Well,
in there? Why isn't that house or the well haunted?
You know what, Spencer? Here's the thing.
Okay.
Places with lots of energy attract spirits.
Here
We've
we go.
talked about this
There you
100 times.
We have talked
was
about
gonna
this.
say, this-
That is a
and
theory
this
that
takes
I
us
have
back.
heard.
And the thing with that is like people staying, because like we talked about earlier, it's a bed and breakfast.
Right.
People staying will hear like little girls laugh and giggle in the top floor. And the toys, because there's a room, it's like the toy room essentially is what it's called. And the toys are never in the same spot. They're moved around constantly. There's little footsteps that people can hear running across the floor. Who's to say, because it's such an old building, right? Like we talked about, creaky floors.
Yeah.
Right.
But for me, I really think that these ghosts haven't passed on.
See, now I was kind of the videos that I watched about the ghost hunting and the spiritual content of this home. I was kind of here nor there. I didn't really. It's tough to say exactly where I land on this one. I would argue that I actually feel stronger that this house could potentially be haunted than I did about the Winchester house.
Yeah.
Because the Winchester house, despite the mass amount of weirdness going on in there, the size of it, and all that sort of stuff, I feel like it was kind of like more perceived horrible. Like people died, people got blown away by those damn rifles.
But it didn't happen there.
The thing
there.
is the dark event happened at this house.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's more willing to attract negative energy, for sure.
I do agree with you guys that
It's such
a lot more dark stuff happened in this house than in
and
the
that's
previous
why
one.
it's so
in and around. And around.
And that's why it's so freaky to me anyway, and that's why I believe so heavily. They have like a little memorial kind of thing in the house for old Andrew there.
Right. Is this the give a penny, take a penny?
You do not ever touch a penny.
Don't ever touch a penny.
It's really just
They
leave a penny.
say like you leave money there as like a tribute.
Because if you take his damn coins,
if you take his
off.
coin, he
mad.
will mess you up. Like people have gone and left with like scratches on their arms. And,
Now I saw a video where somebody did in fact the lovely and much more prestigious show BuzzFeed Unsolved.
I watched this as well.
And the fellow on there, the skeptic fellow, took plenty of his money.
He did. He took
and
whole dollars even.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
I heard also on a follow up, because they did an that show's big enough where they have an after show now. If we could ever get to a point where we can ramble after our rambling, that'd be pretty nifty.
That'd be cool.
Anyway, they may be at a different spot than where we're at, but from what I understand, he took the money and he got asked on the after show, like, what did you end up doing with the money? And he was like, I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I dropped it down a storm drain.
Yeah, it was like a
it
dollar.
was haunted.
If he was gonna tick off Andrew, you would have thought that he would have been scratched up and all that sort of stuff. Nothing happened to him.
Who's to say?
I would like to point out that this place is currently a business and it's a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And they're using this haunted aspect to get people in the door.
But
you still, it's, if it's a bed and breakfast, people still need to sleep there. And one thing they say on the website is that nobody's ever left during the night.
Nobody's ever left.
They've never, people always stay the night.
I don't actually think that's true. I think people say, I know for a fact it isn't, because I was watching a notable TikTok ghost hunter.
Okay.
And she left at about she had booked the night on Easter.
Okay.
And from what I am to understand, there aren't actually any employees. So one thing to know before you go stay at this spot, is that there are not going to be any employees on
No.
site.
It's like an
They're just gonna be
Airbnb.
guests.
It's like
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
Airbnb. That's not a
you-
bed and breakfast. That's
No,
just
no,
a
they
bed.
come back
They
in the
come back
morning.
in the morning and they cook the breakfast.
Yes.
But I
Ah.
guess at a certain point, once they're done all the tours, because I think the tour is like a 2-hour
Okay.
ordeal. And then at the end of the night, they leave, and then the people who mostly tend to be ghost hunters and, you know, people who are kind of into this sort of spooky stuff, they're the only people left there. And this lady, unknowingly, had booked the night on Easter, and nobody else was there with her.
Okay.
And she was like
Ooh.
live streaming it on TikTok and all that sort of stuff. At around 1 o'clock in the morning, she left the house and slept in her car.
Oh boy.
And then she came back inside when the light had come back up, slept for a
Sure.
couple hours, and then left. I think people are leaving all the damn time.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
from
I
my
could be wrong about that.
understanding,
I stand corrected.
You know, there was a couple that said when they were there, their handle on their door kept like shaking like rapidly,
Right.
like not like a normal
That's
person would.
spooky. I don't
Like just
that.
I hate
Yeah.
that. And the ghost videos I was watching, the guy recorded himself overnight, and you know, like one thing that I definitely knew for a fact is he did probably have a window cracked because you
Yeah.
saw it
Yeah.
kind of blow a little bit, but that doesn't explain a door slamming shut and then opening.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
That's weird.
That
just
doesn't
the,
explain
just
that.
the slamming. Well, I mean,
Maybe if there was a window on the other
yeah,
side and
if
it didn't
change,
fully latch.
changing air currents could maybe do that.
But when the door closes and
if it latches,
and then opens again,
yeah,
I'm a little bit more suspect to believe
for
that
sure.
we're
That's
dealing with ghosts.
that's a
here.
bit weird for sure.
And you know, a few of the because I've watched 3 or 4 different ghost hunting. I didn't just stick with one.
Sure.
You did some exhaustive research.
God, 3 hours and being spooked in my room by myself as I'm writing these notes for the show.
I'm so spooked
I'm
now.
so scared.
I'm so
I'm
startled
so
right now.
startled. Yeah, but yeah, they did EVP, so they recorded. They had a recorder,
Sure.
and they said, you know, who killed you, more or less.
Yeah,
And a female voice said Lizzie.
I saw that actually. Yeah.
And then you know, like, and then lots of things like, was it in
That was like,
EMP?
was that a spirit box or
No,
was
that was just a recording.
That was EVP. See,
Yeah.
now I think I watched that same video, and I would say that this ghost hunt, because there were like 12 people there, right? It was
but-
an absolute gangbang of a ghost hunt.
Yeah, they
like they
got
had
a little
like
wild.
3 digital recorders.
It was
sitting
the
on
one
the
that
fucking,
I sent you guys.
I
I
don't
watched
even know if
it.
I don't know
watched
that
it.
I actually clicked that one.
Yeah.
I was being a bad collaborator, and I don't know. Which one
I
it
send
was.
you guys videos and nobody watches them.
I didn't watch that. Well, maybe I did.
I
but
did. Pretty sure I did.
but yeah, no, they there's lots of things like that, and then a different one that I watched, they had a spirit box going, which who knows the validity of spirit
There's
boxes.
there's a lot of interpretation that tends to happen with
There
spirit boxes.
is, but when they ask, "Did Andrew hurt you?"
And it says yes.
No, and it says rape.
Oh,
That
Did
tends
it, but
to.
did it like really clearly say
Oh,
rape?
it was clear as day.
Okay.
It was clear as
See-
day, man.
See, I'm really
So that's
fuzzy
why
on
I'm
spirit
very much like, okay, this is obviously a very dark house. Whether or not a murder had taken place, I guarantee that it would be dark energy because like
boxes. Right.
that guy was not a good person.
yeah.
He was a bad hombre.
And you know, like I know that what are those meters? What
Oh,
are they called?
EMF meters.
EMF
Yeah, yeah.
meters. I know they're kind of bunk because like
Well,
this the board would
Yeah.
if we had an EMF it would be going crazy right now.
Yeah.
Right.
But that being said, you know, these ghost hunts, they also turn off the power.
I almost do they really?
A lot of the time they do.
I tend to almost think an EMF meter. I don't know. See,
I'm
it's
on the
so
fence
it's
with them.
so fuzzy. I think
I don't know enough about
we're
this.
okay,
to
so
we'll
say.
probably
They-
get
they
into
pick
methods
up-
of contact and
They
ghost
pick up
hunting more.
electromagnetic pulses,
Yeah.
right?
Or fields.
But
the
like
fields,
your like the processor in your phone is gonna release
Yes,
that.
but the
like,
thing is if you don't have any electricity on you, like
Except all these ding dongs have cameras and
Yeah.
stuff
The-
around them.
the reason I say this is because I've seen them.
I
They've
shouldn't say
set
ding
them.
dongs. That's not nice. We are very much
We're dumb.
also ding
We
dongs
are
doing the
also-
same thing.
Yes.
Except
But,
we
like-
have not gone on a ghost hunt.
they are more credible than we are.
At this point, yes.
Here's the thing, man. They'll set them on a table, and they'll be far enough away that you know their electronic devices, like their phones and stuff,
yeah.
won't pick up in that field, and they'll be like nothing, 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 and then it'll just go nuts,
Sure.
and then it'll keep
And
going
that
nuts.
is weird. That's
It's
undeniably odd.
For me, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to trust that kind of method, an EMF reader, a little bit more. Same with like temperature guns, or temperature
Just
moderators.
a damn thermometer.
Thermometer,
is
yeah.
what you're going-
More
just
or
a
less.
laser thermometer.
Like an
Yeah.
infrared or laser
And
thermometer,
if
yeah.
you just see like the temperature go from, say, a comfortable thing just suddenly drop,
That's hard to
like,
explain.
Yeah,
It's
that
hard
is-
to
that is hard to
It's
explain.
very hard to explain. And the thing with spirits in general is they pull energy, right?
Right.
That's why they're attracted to places with lots of energy. They'll pull energy. So that's why, it gets cold in there, because it's pulling the energy, right?
Interesting.
Man, you know a lot about the damn science.
You
of
know your
ghosts
shit.
and all
Man,
that. I don't know what this is about pulling energy or anything like that, but
But that's the thing. They also like feed off of you.
right, okay.
Like that's what they say with ghosts, whether they do it intentionally or not, is they do feed off of you because they need, and humans are essentially little words,
Like
little
a-
batteries.
We're like a
We're batteries.
generator.
So they're sucking power.
You're trying to
from
suck
us.
our essential goo out?
More or less, yes. But they don't. Whether or not they mean to or not is a completely different thing, because I'm going a little bit off track
the
here.
regretful ghost. I didn't mean to suck your goo out.
Yeah, they were not pleased about it.
They didn't mean to do it. They just
No,
had to.
but and that's
it wasn't a choice.
and a lot of people, when they've had encounters with ghosts, the next couple days they're usually pretty exhausted.
Right.
Little shaken.
Now, is that
perhaps?
because of their very dramatic performance, or because
No.
is it because of their
Well,
very
you could-
dramatic? Now, see,
Spencer,
that's a very
that's
wild,
unfair.
skeptical thing to say.
That's unfair.
But I
Let
will
me-
say that some of the stuff that I saw, like a lot, I think I watched that same video as you, despite not clicking the link in the chat.
Yeah.
I think that some of those EMFs were hard to dispute, and
Yes.
even some of the spirit box stuff was weird enough, where I was like, okay, like there is some possibility that this is legit. Now, a spirit box is wild. A spirit box is like kind of a hokey concept,
For those
despite
who-
the fact that it's
So
cool.
what it does
For those
is
who may not know, tell us about it,
it
Brett.
rapidly, from my understanding, from what I've picked up from watching stuff, I haven't actually done the research on it because we haven't gotten to that topic yet in our vast array of topics we're going to talk about. But from my understanding is it shoots through radio frequencies very quickly,
Okay.
and then ghosts can communicate through those radio frequencies
by
so
like picking up like
bits and pieces of
bits-
like radio, more or less.
Now is this just like while you're scanning through? Because like often, like whenever I've ever seen a spirit box used, and we really will get into more contact methods later on, but the long and short of it is like, are they communicating by like, is this their voice coming through? That's what some people tend to believe, or are they supposed to be able to stop it and then pick part of whatever the radio jock has said? I don't know what exactly it is.
I'm
Like
not,
Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
It's
what
more
it
or less-
sounds like.
that's what
It's
it
a
sounds
bumblebee,
like.
actually.
But
That's the best possible.
it's very weird because, like, we talked about the spirit box.
Is it weird or is it hokey?
You're killing me.
I'm
man.
gonna let him go. I'm
You're
gonna let him go.
killing
I'm
me,
sorry.
man.
You're just
You're
coming at
killing
Brett
me.
today.
I'm being a dick.
Yeah, it's just like every time we do it, it's like, let's bully the believer here. And you know what?
Hey,
These people are on my side.
Oh,
Are
I
these-
bet they are.
Are they?
Oh, for sure.
They probably are.
They probably are.
People do be loving ghosts.
They do.
It's more likable to and you know what, I'm not even entirely off it, like really
Well-
and truly. I think there is some properly compelling evidence, and like my rating, because I think a rating is something that we probably should continue
course,
to do, a
yeah.
1 to 10 on our believability scale.
You know,
This is gonna, like, I'm
it's
not
gonna
sure
be
where
up
I'm at,
there.
but I'm gonna fall higher than Winchester.
Yeah, for sure. For me, spirit boxes seem, like Spencer said, a little hokey to me. But when you're asking it direct questions and then you're getting direct answers that relate to it, that's where I'm like, okay. Or, they have the voice recording
Yeah.
and it's just a recorder. That's all it is. It's not anything special. It's not supposedly supposed to communicate with the dead. And then you can hear a voice clearly. That's where
That's
it gets like,
pretty hard
because
to
they asked
dispute,
like,
yeah.
who murdered you, and it went Lizzie.
Now,
Yeah.
with so many people in the room
I
and
did
so
see
much
that.
stuff going on, somebody could potentially have said something.
Oh yeah.
And,
I mean,
and the possibility is there, but that also doesn't explain, like, people have talked about that place. They see like a black mass in their room, depending on which room you're in too.
Yeah, I've heard
And-
some accounts of shadow people and following them
exactly.
around.
And that's why it's because, like we talked about, it's a heavy energy place.
Right.
And it's going to attract not just the ghosts of the people that have died there, but it could attract anything. The only thing that I found complete and utter bullshit
Mm-hmm.
is they say, oh, if you go into the basement and take a picture of this wall, you'll see a face.
Oh yeah,
the-
no, I
and
did
I'm
hear that
like-
one too. That one seemed
I'm
a
like,
little
it's
hokey.
condensation. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's supposed to look like Andrew Borden's face. I'm like, no, it doesn't.
That's like
It-
when you see Jesus in your toast. Like,
It's gonna happen. You're
Yeah.
you're gonna get a Christ toast every once in a
Every
while.
now and then.
Especially if you have a toaster that's designed to put out Christ. And there are toasters that are designed to
Oh,
do
for
that.
sure.
Just like toasters that you can get that'll put out the
Like-
Imperial, like,
like
they'll
the
put
Death
out
Star or
the
something.
Death Star,
Yeah.
or like Darth Vader's head or something
Well,
like
Yep.
that.
and for sure, and that was the only part of the whole thing where I'm like, all right, that one's a stretch, guys. But
Yeah.
the rest of it, fucking real.
Oh boy.
The rest of it, I'm like, oh boy, I'm
some of
on.
it's hard to some of it's hard to dispute, and some of the evidence that I saw, there were like, there were people just flipping out and dancing around and jumping around. They'd done an EVP and they thought they heard Lizzie, and what I heard was, and they're like, oh, that's Lizzie. But then some of them were kind of clear.
One
See-
thing I will say is that, the power of suggestion is very strong.
Huge confirmation bias.
Yeah, have
power
you
of
ever
suggestion.
seen those things where like I saw one of these on the internet the other day where it just plays the same sound over and over and over again, but each time it plays the sound, there's a different caption. And if you're reading the caption, when
It
you're hearing the
changes the
sound,
sound
you
for it,
will
yeah.
hear the sound. And then, if you stop looking at the caption, you'll still hear one of the
Right.
things that you saw before because it's already in your brain, and your brain is trying to find patterns, and the human brain is
for sure.
amazing at finding patterns,
And
even when they're
you know
not there.
what? For the recordings, that's entirely possible too.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
recordings, the spirit box. It is worth noting too that like these people who own the bed and breakfast are doing they're doing everything they possibly can to like lean into the spooky aspect of
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to get people even to like try to communicate with them. Like obviously that's such a huge the attraction isn't for a family to come and eat pancakes on a breakfast.
I don't know,
while
man.
they're
That's a pretty
visiting
good
Fall
attraction
River.
for me.
It's for
I love me some
that's
pancakes.
nice, but it's a spooky weird house, and they have like spirit boards all over the place,
Sure.
and they talk about like how they're like,
Dude,
don't use the spirit boards.
I'm just
you know?
saying, man.
But they
even
have them everywhere,
even-
so obviously the implication is do be using the spirit
Yeah.
boards.
even just having them in an area can
Right.
attract some nasty stuff.
See,
if
now-
you believe in
Now
that stuff.
you and I are on a different bandwidth.
we're arguing.
we're on a different
in our
wavelength
chats.
on
We're
that one.
arguing about.
But I mean, like, who's to say? You talk about like haunted objects. Like,
Yeah.
I think that spirit boards are mostly they're
You know,
they probably don't fall within the realm of real for me. But then you had noted, what if it's a haunted object?
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
I can't say that there aren't haunted objects. Maybe there are haunted objects. I've not seen a haunted object, but with that in mind, who's to say if it's a haunted object?
Yeah.
There is more in heaven and earth than exists in your philosophy, Horatio. That's a Shakespeare quote.
I love
Meaning
it.
we don't know everything.
Exactly.
no
So
idea.
that's and then like it's funny. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she said, I don't believe in ghosts, but then you said something that like really made me think.
Oh boy.
And I said to her, because I've said to you guys before, it's like maybe the reason you don't believe in it is because you're afraid of it.
Yeah.
That's a big
And
driving
that
force
was-
in my life.
Yeah, and that was entirely. She's like, you know what? You're right. I'm afraid that there are things that we don't understand. And to me, your two options are to be afraid of it, or have a little solace in knowing there's not just lights out and
Mhm.
everything's done.
Well,
Like that's preferable.
I mean, this is a hot take, but in my experience, that's why God exists.
Yeah,
It's because
I mean it's entirely
because
possible.
people don't want to
Right.
acknowledge the fact that there might just be nothing, and that we might just be alone in the universe, and they can't handle that.
And I mean, like, who's to say what there is? I
Yeah.
do believe that places do pick up energy. Like this house obviously has an energy about it.
Not this house.
No, this house is fine.
Spencer's like, not
is
this one.
fine.
You keep
Not
that
this one.
energy out of my damn house.
I like how
but-
you're-
Leave my dolls alone.
I like how you're so skeptical about this, Spencer. But as soon as we talk about doing something in your
Oh,
house,
yeah.
you're like,
no.
"Fuck no."
Yeah, we've been. I'm real skeptical until we start talking about
Yeah.
doing a seance in my basement.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to do a seance. There is a part of me that does wonder, though, if we open a dimensional rift and we bring in some sort of strange space demon into my house, I don't know. I don't believe in any of this, but also I might believe in it. I don't know. One of these days, he's either you're gonna break me or you're gonna break me. I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
I'm gonna hit you with some real spooky fact. I'm sending you nuke top 5 videos.
See, but
Did you boys watch that one?
I did, yeah.
I actually don't know if I did that.
You're killing
one.
me.
I don't know if I
You
did
gotta
watch that
you
one.
gotta at least look at one.
They are wild.
They-
Some of them are like hard to discount.
I did actually. You know what? I did click on. Well, I watched all 3 videos that you posted on the
Okay,
chat.
yeah, then for sure you
so that
watched
would
it.
have been
Because
that would've
I-
been
It
you
was
know.
the one with all the ghost hunting stuff. It was like,
yeah.
Did you see it?
It was a little hokey.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, and
I'll be
that's
honest,
what
I
it's meant.
didn't-
It's meant to be hokey.
I didn't really see anything.
Mm,
And I
Again,
think that
to
most
each
of
his
the
own.
time that tends to be the way how it be. But you know, sometimes there's some things.
I don't know.
He doesn't believe that.
I don't know about
Brett
all that.
Brett is also not a believer in the Adobe Creative Cloud. He does not acknowledge the existence of After Effects.
Nope.
Power of special effects has no power.
Mm.
Well, according to Brett.
The problem is though is like I've seen some of the like the problem is when I see people that clearly could not manage to do After Effects taking ghost
Oh,
videos,
yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah, there's some
All right.
clunky production on a lot of the ghost videos, and when you
Some,
see the production being that brutal, now is that intentional?
Yeah.
And then they throw in a bunch of special effects. Like, are they trying to make it believable, or is it?
I would-
Who knows? There
you
are
know-
just too many forces at play here.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna go ahead and say like, yeah, a lot of them can be discounted, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
very upsetting to me.
For those, well, I guess we've never talked about this on the podcast. I'm pretty skeptical when it comes to like ghosts and stuff. I'm not nearly as skeptical when it comes to things like aliens and otherworldly.
Oh, I believe in
Beings.
aliens fully.
And
What really scares
Now,
me.
hopefully, this isn't what makes you people check out. You know what? To be fair, though, people who are on board for a paranormal podcast probably didn't just come right over here from Richard Dawkins' podcast.
Probably
No.
not.
They're probably, you know, we probably got a lot of believers in the
I think so.
in the group
You know,
here. We're
and
probably not
the-
attracting that many skeptics.
Yeah, and the thing that scares me is I've seen a few videos, and like Spencer said, it could just be After Effects, but some of really weird creatures that you'll see like that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like Wendigos. Ooh, Jesus.
You know what? That
this is-
stuff
we'll
we're
talk
getting
about this
way
later.
on a
Yeah,
tangent.
yeah,
here.
we're
I
gonna-
don't know about any of that, but
We're gonna have episodes about that sort of stuff
tons,
for sure.
tons. So I don't know, like
I had somewhere I was going with that. And
No, I
then I got a
understand
little
completely.
sidetracked.
and then
If I-
it was either me or it was, I don't know. I think
was
it was
probably
me.
both of us.
One of us or both of us got on the top rope and just slammed it.
Yeah,
Like,
it
oh,
was just
Simon
straight
has
out.
somewhere to go. That's happened a lot this
No, that's
episode.
okay.
I've done a lot of jumping on both of you, and I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh.
But for the Simon heads and the Brett heads out there, I'm sorry that
it's all good.
I got so
You get-
loud and obnoxious
you're-
this
you're
time.
getting a
That's gonna
little
happen
heated.
every time.
That's okay. That's what you're here for.
You're getting a little heated.
Oh man, you
That's-
start telling me some stuff I don't agree with.
Yeah, apparently.
We're gonna get into it, baby. We're
That's
gonna have
good.
it out. But anyway, so what's our belief in this place? Do we believe
Oh,
it's haunted? Who do we believe did the murder? Like Simon, who do you think did it?
Who do I think murdered them?
Yeah.
I think that Lizzie had a romantic relationship with the maid. That was rumored.
And
And-
I'd heard that.
Yeah, and
Because
I think
she did live with her
yeah.
after the fact.
Yeah, and I
for
think-
Oh,
years.
did she?
Oh yeah.
and I think she hated her father and her stepmother, and I think that she murdered them and had the maid be a witness for her. Like
Right.
because they took the maid's testimony as gospel. The police,
they
I
were
should
in
say,
cahoots.
they took the maid's testimony as gospel, and I think they were in cahoots. And then later on, keep in mind this was a very repressed time.
Yeah.
Later on, after Lizzie had inherited all of that money,
The roaring 1890s.
yeah, yeah, when she was living in her beautiful home on the hill and being a socialite and throwing parties for movie stars,
And spending a bunch of time in New York as
Yeah,
well. She
and yeah,
befriended a lot
New
of
York, yeah.
like heavy Broadway stars.
yeah,
at the
she
time.
definitely became like a socialite, you could say. And there was some rumors that some salacious rumors flying that she
I
was
love
having
a salacious room.
that she was in a sexual relationship with a female movie star whose name escapes me off the top of my head.
Yeah, neither of us are gonna have it.
Yeah,
That's,
So look
I
that
didn't
up,
even
people.
get that far.
But yeah, so that was a rumor there, and I think maybe if she had been in cahoots with the maid, that would sort of jive with that.
Right.
So I think maybe she probably did do it. You know, they found the murder weapon and all
it's a
that was
little-
there. Like, there's all this circumstantial stuff, and the police didn't really do a great job. They played the gender card, saying that
At
she
the-
couldn't
at the
do
time,
this.
you
Yeah,
know, like,
exactly. At the time.
it was a product of its time. We'll put it that
Oh
way.
yeah, the whole story is.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're asking me, I think she either did it or had a hand in it.
Mhm.
Right.
I'd say that she's not completely innocent.
No.
As for
sure.
whether it's haunted, I agree with you that all this murder and death and all these horrible acts would have given the house some negative energy. I've heard that people who stay there say that it gives them an unsettled feeling.
Mhm.
Right.
And as for whether it's full on haunted, I don't know. I think there probably is some negative energy in the house, though.
There's
like
some sort of imprint.
like
There's
like
some
we talked about
reverberations.
in the first episode, how you can sense when something's a little off.
yeah,
It gives you
exactly.
just some unease. Like the hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up, and a lot of people who have stayed there have said this.
Right.
And like I was sort of gonna say earlier about the whole like UFO thing, is that when enough people have a story, and all these people are from different walks of life, and they don't know each other, and they have no reason to be saying the same thing, when enough people say that, you need to start listening, maybe not taking it as gospel.
What you're saying is where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly. And I think there's enough people who have stayed at this bed and breakfast who have had some weird experiences, said that they heard things and that they felt things, that I think it is a strong candidate for being haunted. I don't know if it's going to be like a horror movie where some spooky spirit is jumping out at you, and
the thing is a lot of the time it isn't that.
Exactly.
It's
It
smaller
seems like
things.
it's almost never like that.
Yeah.
Now, on a numerical value between a 1 to 10, where are you sitting on this one?
I'm gonna put this one. I think I did Winchester was like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, I probably should have done that, maybe like a 2.
Fair enough.
But for this one, I think I'm gonna put it as at least a 4, maybe a 5. I'm like for me as a skeptical person, I think that's a pretty
That's a
it's
pretty
big.
good rating.
strong.
It's pretty big.
That's a pretty strong rating.
I'm getting in there. I'm getting in that noodle of yours.
Now what about you, Spooky Boy?
Oh, man.
Who done it, and where are you at numerically?
So, just based on what Simon said too, I do believe that Abby Borden. No, fuck.
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden.
Words are hard. I'm sorry, people. Lizzie Borden did definitely have a hand in it in some
Yeah.
regards. Do I think she did it? Probably. Like, this was obviously a crime of passion.
It was. Yeah.
Was it justified? Who's to say?
I mean, I don't
because
think-
we don't know what was happening in the house as far as abuse goes.
I don't know if
because-
murder is ever really justified.
No, it really
But-
isn't. But when it's a situation that's
when
that
it's
dark,
when it's you, it's easier to justify.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where it's very, very dark.
It's easy.
There-
It's easier
And
for us
so
to judge.
We can more justify
Yeah.
this murder, but at the same time, I do totally think she did it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's hard to ever justify emulsifying somebody.
yes. But that being said, if it's years and years and years
Yeah,
of
for sure. Of
abuse,
Yeah.
systematic, horrible,
Yeah.
sexual. and
It makes
mental
it
abuse.
more
sometimes
understandable.
people just
They snap. Yeah.
Right.
and their brains just go.
Yeah, and you stop making rational decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, do I think she did it? 100%. There's
Yeah.
no way she didn't do it.
Yeah.
As far as haunting goes,
And the community of what's it called?
Fall River.
Fall River. The community of Fall River would have agreed with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because for many, many years she was ostracized by the community. It wasn't to the degree of the lady from the Winchester house where she
Yes.
never left her house.
Right.
But
Now that may have been that was voluntary. On
That
her
was
part.
voluntary,
but
nobody,
still.
nobody didn't want her to.
but
leave
in
the
but in
house.
this case, there were stories that went all around the town. The kids would like throw stuff at her house.
yeah,
and
like she
didn't have any
was-
friends anymore in the town. She had to
Right.
she had to go to New York to make friends because everyone there thought she was a murderer.
So, as far as the hauntings and what have you go, is just I have seen too much video evidence, which I know, it can be faked, blah, 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 blah.
is
get it,
is that an
Spencer.
impression of me?
Yeah. It can be faked. Look at After Effects, yes, but
Oh, look at me! I'm Spencer.
Yeah,
it
pretty
could be
much.
fake.
yeah, pretty much. But, just from what I've seen on video and like just recordings that there's no one in the area
Yeah.
and you're hearing footsteps and you're seeing people run and this is I'm saying this as nicely as I can. I've seen ones where the house has been completely rented out. There's nobody else in the house but only 2 ghost hunters.
Sure.
Right.
So it's not And
Two ghost hunters who are very good at video editing and editing sound. And all kinds of other
One thing I will
things
say
possibly.
to back you up though, Brett, is it is a bit
I'm just joshing you.
it is a bit suspect when you ask a question like
And-
who murdered you, and then you get a pretty clear response that
Yes.
says Lizzie. But again, with
Yeah.
Alex Spencer says, this is something that absolutely could be put in.
Now
They-
it's to give Brett some credit. It would actually be. I'm goofing. I'm
I
goofing
know.
on you. It would be
I
tough
know.
to edit those things in a convincing way because you
It's a
break with
very-
the sound you added in. There's
Yeah.
when you're editing sound and stuff, there's like ambient sound in the background.
Yes.
There
Yeah.
are all of these things that need to add up to actually make sound convincing.
yeah.
And whatever they're having happen in that house, whether it's staged or not, it's happening on the recording in real time.
Yes.
It's not editing.
It's not editing. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's like,
Mhm.
and this is why I believe it's such a good candidate, and not to mention just all that dark energy of two gruesome murders, like probably the worst America has seen at that point in time,
at least from a woman,
at least from a
Yeah,
woman,
from a woman.
presumably.
You know,
anyway.
I mean, let's be honest here. We don't really know. So
We're
No,
not
we
100% sure.
we are
but-
definitely kind of spitballing on
But
that
that being said, it's such a dark thing that of course, it makes perfect
one. Yeah,
sense to me.
and like we said earlier, like these dark acts can attract
It attracts some pretty nasty things.
Yeah, some nasty things.
So, do I think it's out of a scale from 1 to 10? I'm going about a 9.
Well, that's pretty strong.
that's
That's
a-
very strong,
that's
actually.
bold.
Just based on what I saw and what I watched, because mind you, this was 3 hours of watching
Yeah.
just ghost hunting videos on this place. Not to mention, I did watch all the historical
Sure.
documentaries, and I spent a lot of time watching stuff about this house
You
because
went
it
down
did.
the hole.
It
Did some real
excited me.
research.
It
Yeah.
excited me. So
It's a fun case.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a fun
terrifying.
case.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying
To
case.
me,
but as far
like-
as things go, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
this is definitely a house that I wouldn't want to stay in overnight.
Yeah, like
by myself.
like I call myself a skeptic, but again, if someone was like, "Are you going to sleep there by yourself?" I'd
No.
be like, "No."
No
If someone asked me
chance.
if I wanted to buy this house, I would not.
Yeah,
So-
I'd rather torch it.
Yeah,
In entire
exactly.
honesty, let's
Exactly.
reuse the land. Now, the whole thing about reusing land is that usually doesn't work out too well
Yeah,
in horror movies.
I
either.
don't think
No,
that works.
it never does. How about yourself, Spencer? How are you?
Yeah,
How are you feeling?
how are you
and
feeling
or
about
leaning
this one,
on
buddy?
this one here?
What do you
How is
think?
How is a little shit-eating grin himself?
Yeah,
feeling
you were
about this
just
one?
you were just
You're just waiting.
ragging on both of us.
I was bopping both of you a little bit more than I maybe should have, but hey,
That's
know,
what makes
That's what
it
you're
fun,
here
man.
for.
That's what it
That's
is,
what we're
baby.
here for.
I actually land pretty similarly to both of you.
Well-
I land probably closer to Simon as far as where my number falls, but as far as who did the actual murder, I tend to I agree with both of you. I think that probably like just due to the amount of people that were in the area, I don't necessarily think that John Morse had any sort of involvement. I think
Yeah.
it was probably I wonder if they did have a relationship, did she still call her Maggie? Was he?
That's
if
a great
was,
question.
If they were in some sort of if they were in a relationship and she
Yeah.
was calling her Maggie rather than Bridget, then maybe Bridget should have turned her into goo after
Maybe,
that.
Yeah.
maybe.
That's a weird
That's
level.
high end.
Yeah.
But I
disrespect.
shouldn't be
Uh,
assuming things like that. But
maybe it was a private thing that she
it could have been. Maybe it was a sweet thing that they
Maybe.
had going
I don't
on.
know.
But in any case, I think that probably Bridget, the maid, and Lizzie were in cahoots, and possibly Emma as well, because she stood to benefit a whole heck of a lot from this, and she did.
She did. However, Emma and Lizzie moved in at their house on the hill together,
Right.
and that only lasted for a couple of years. And then
really?
they had a falling out, and Emma packed her shit and left.
I'm sure she still managed to make off with enough of.
Oh
chunk
yeah,
of the
I think
fortune
they
to
I
do
think
just
they
fine.
split the fortune, but after they left, those two sisters never saw each other.
You know what?
again.
There's a lot of pressure to be. There's probably a lot of pressure when you're holding together the secret of a horrifying murder.
Oh yeah.
And maybe
I
being
would say
separate
that
would
might be
be
part of it.
Yeah.
would be better, and of course we don't know, we're not we weren't there,
Yeah.
no one will ever know, this case will never be solved, but I do think that it was probably the maid and Lizzie, and probably Emma had some understanding of it too. As far as how haunted the place is, I'm probably gonna step it up. I said it was a 4. I gave a solid 4 on the Winchester, and I'm going to probably be in the same spot as you with a
Yeah.
retroactive knockdown to a 3
Yeah.
on that one. And I think I'm going to give this a 5-6.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
feeling pretty good about this one.
it's
This is a spooky
convincing
house.
enough.
I don't want to
Yeah.
be in there, but we are running long on time here, boys.
Oh, really?
So we should probably.
You know what? Before we stop, we are on YouTube, obviously. If you have any spooky stories, please email us at doghostsbereal@gmail.com.
And there's no question mark in
No.
that. That's just all one word.
It will be at the bottom of the screen.
gmail.com.
And we are gonna have episodes with listener submitted content.
Yes.
So if you want
Very
us to
soon.
read your story, please send it to us. We'd love to have it.
And you know what? We're also on TikTok.
Yeah,
at
we're
Do Ghosts
Zoomers
Be
now.
Real.
Yeah.
And
I had nothing to do with that.
We
I
are on Instagram.
just want to point that out.
Do
But it's
period
great. We're
ghosts
loving it.
period be real. So follow us on there. We'll keep you up to date. There'll be tons of fun clips. There'll be lots of content coming out over the next
Yeah.
little while. So
And,
be sure to stay tuned.
We are gonna be on Apple Podcasts once
We're
we can
working
get.
it out.
Yeah. Like we said
We're
earlier.
fighting with the jobs man right now.
Yeah.
I'm so I have done so many stupid things to our social media. To this day, we still on Instagram are do period ghosts period be period real period. There's no podcast in there. There's no question mark. I can't change it because I did some trifling with it.
Oh.
And I goofed up our link tree at one point. And Apple, I spent like an hour and a half on the phone with them. And they didn't like it, and they weren't able to fix our account. So I don't know. We're going to get on Apple Podcasts sooner than later here. But in any case, our next episode, we're doing haunted dolls.
Oh boy, I am so excited for all
Brett's
these
hyped on
haunted
that.
dolls.
I'm gonna watch all the Annabelle movies.
Oh, I'm not even.
We're all going to watch all the Annabelle movies, except the one that got knocked out of canon.
Yeah, you guys, legitimately, actually, you guys should come to my place and
I'd
watch
love
a
to
horror
do
movie.
that.
I would like to, but I'm going to shit my pants as we're watching.
And
it.
he's going
We'll
to
get
shit
you-
his
we'll get
pants.
you a
We're
diaper.
going to get him a diaper.
We'll
We're going
get
to
you
get
a
him a
diaper.
bedpan.
Yeah,
We're going to
Like,
make it
we'll
work.
put down some sheets.
You guys are gonna have to muzzle me
We'll
because
get-
I will.
We'll get him a ball
pad.
We'll get him a ball gag and a puppy pad.
Okay.
He can go in a corner.
Okay.
In any case,
We'll just tie up and
Leave
yeah,
me,
we'll just
leave me
you
to
there.
my devices to cry.
this has
Fine.
been Do Ghosts Be Real, Episode 3, the Lizzie Borden House. We hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more next week.